Hey there, book lovers. Welcome back to Quick Book Summary, the channel where we break down your favorite books into bite-sized knowledge nuggets. I'm Martin, your trusty guide through the world of literature. Today, we've got a gem of a book that's going to challenge the way you think, just like Bill Gates himself. We're diving deep into How to Think Like Bill Gates by Daniel Smith. But before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our quick book summaries. And if you want to grab a copy of this book for yourself, you can find the link in the description below or head over to our website, quickbooksummary.com. Now, let's unlock the genius mindset of one of the most iconic entrepreneurs of our time. Bill Gates. Introduction. Let's get started by learning about Bill Gates. He's a very successful person, and in this summary, we'll find out how he became famous. We'll also explore what he likes to do, how he became rich, and how he managed a big computer software company. Plus, we'll talk about his legacy and how he kept his employees happy. If you're curious about Bill Gates, you're in the right place. The early life of Bill Gates. Bill Gates had a different path to success. He didn't start as a poor person and become rich later in life. He came from a well-off family. But his upbringing had some interesting lessons. His parents didn't allow TV on school nights. Instead, they encouraged reading, talking, and brain-teasing games. They also went on vacations with friends and had mini Olympics, which sparked Gates's competitive spirit. In school, Gates loved science and math, and he aced his MathSat. His first computer encounter happened in 1968, but computers were super expensive for schools. So they had a special setup that let him use a computer from a distance. Gates spent hours on it and even created his first digital tic-tac-toe game. To keep using the computer, Gates needed money. It cost $8 an hour, a lot for a kid. He found a job at 13 at a company called C-Cubed, where he hunted for bugs in their programs and, in return, got to use their computer for free. At 15, Gates made a more advanced program called Trafo Data, helping traffic engineers in Seattle. He went to Harvard for college but wasn't a perfect student. He skipped classes he didn't like but excelled in challenging subjects. Spending hours in the computer lab helped him become a coding expert because he had an exceptional memory. This early experience shaped him into the person he became. Gates's heroes. Bill Gates wasn't your typical kid who had posters of heroes on his walls. But he did admire a few special people. One of them was Sir Isaac Newton, who really impressed him. He also looked up to Leonardo da Vinci. As he grew older, he added Henry Ford to his list of heroes, especially for Ford's success. However, Ford's inability to sustain that success disappointed Gates. One person Gates truly admired was Warren Buffett. They first met at a party organized by Gates' mom in 1991, and they instantly hit it off. They had a lot in common, the same sense of humor, political beliefs, and even a shared taste in food. Here's a funny story. When they traveled together to China, they chose to eat at McDonald's. Despite Buffett being incredibly wealthy, he used a free voucher to pay for their meal. Buffett believed in seizing every opportunity, even for a free meal. Gates still follows Buffett's way of thinking today. When he's making decisions, he often asks himself, what would Buffett do? And tries to follow his example. Microsoft, opportunities are important, and Bill Gates didn't miss his big chance in 1975. His childhood friend Paul Allen spotted an ad for a machine called Altair 8800 in a magazine. It was a box with blinking lights, not quite the computers we have today, but Gates and Allen saw potential. They wanted to create software for it, so they talked to Ed Roberts, who founded the company that made Altair 8800. Gates convinced Roberts that they had software to make the machine run programs, even though they hadn't made it yet. They promised to demonstrate it in 6 weeks. They worked hard, and when the day came, Allen showed the software to the company's board of directors. They were amazed and agreed to buy it for $3,000 plus a cut of future sales. This success inspired Gates and Allen to start their own company. They called it Microsoft, short for microcomputers and software, which later became Microsoft. Gates hired young, talented people who had just finished school. He wanted them to learn Microsoft's way of developing software. They often worked non-stop, with Gates believing that sleep is for wimps. He set the example by staying up for days to code and manage the company. Between 1978 and 1984, he took only 15 days off. Microsoft had a unique workplace culture. Gates believed that letting employees relax made them more productive. They had sports facilities like basketball and football and a cafeteria open until midnight. In the beginning, Gates even organized microgames, like the mini-Olympics he enjoyed as a child. Gates and intellectual property. The topic we're talking about is intellectual property, which means ideas and creations from the mind. But what's the line between stealing someone's ideas and just making something similar? Bill Gates had strong opinions on this. He thought that if strict patent rules existed when he started, the software and hardware industry wouldn't have grown. People would be afraid to improve on ideas, thinking they'd be called thieves. Gates didn't like stealing at all. He criticized people who copied Microsoft software without permission. Some believed hardware should be bought, but software should be free. Gates disagreed. He said this idea would stop software developers from earning for their hard work. If they didn't get paid, they'd stop making software and everyone would lose out. There's a famous case between Apple and Microsoft. Apple accused Microsoft of copying its graphical user interface for Windows. The case lasted years, but Microsoft won. Gates argued that they didn't steal. They improved upon an idea Xerox first had. Apple did the same thing. So in his view, Microsoft developed the software. They didn't steal it. Lead from the front. Bill Gates isn't your typical leader. He talks like a regular person, using slang like super cool. He sometimes teases and jokes with his colleagues at Microsoft. He's not the formal type like Winston Churchill, but if you rely on him, he'll work hard to make things happen. Gates believes that a company should succeed and grow, no matter who leads it. His journey shows how his strong desire to lead shaped him into the great leader he is today. When Gates was young, he and some students started the Lakeside Programmers Club. He wrote his first code and made a tic-tac-toe game. But he didn't want others to use the computer, so he left the group. Then, the other students realized Gates was the one holding the group together. He was the best coder and knew how to handle technical problems. So, they asked him to come back, and he agreed, but he wanted to be in charge. He warned them that once he was in charge, he planned to stay that way forever. Innovate, innovate, innovate. Creativity often leads to laughter. If no one has ever laughed at one of your ideas, you might not be thinking creatively enough. Microsoft has always aimed to be the first to bring the latest technologies to its customers. This approach kept the company at the top for over 40 years. Whether you love or dislike Microsoft, you can't deny its impact on the world and how things work. Bill Gates had a unique way of thinking. Who's trying to outdo me today? He knew there were many smart people striving for the top in the tech market. That's why he always wanted to stay ahead. One great thing about Gates's approach is that Microsoft invested heavily in research and development. Gates believed software was a blend of art and engineering, and he ensured his employees had both qualities. Microsoft software updates often didn't come out on time, but Gates said quality was their top goal. If they had to delay an update to make sure it was top-notch, that was okay. Stress, test your ideas. Bill Gates takes ideas very seriously. He believes that once a manager makes a decision, they should stick with it. So, when his employees brought new ideas, he liked to test them thoroughly. If an idea passed the quality and innovation tests, they'd start working on it. But getting to that point wasn't easy. Gates wasn't concerned about hurting feelings when discussing ideas. He could be loud, passionate, and challenging. He wanted only the strongest ideas to survive. Some people thought he was a bully who didn't respect his employees, but that's not entirely true. Gates disliked it when someone couldn't stand up for their ideas. He wanted his employees to defend their ideas passionately, even if it meant shouting back or getting angry. Once an idea was verified, you could be sure that Gates would support it wholeheartedly. Learn from your mistakes. Bill Gates believes that success can trick winners into thinking they've achieved everything and are invincible. But for him, success is short-lived. After one accomplishment, he's already thinking about the next challenge. Gates is more focused on learning from failures than basking in success. One example of Microsoft's failure was Microsoft Bob. It was supposed to be an animated helper for Microsoft users, but it needed high-end hardware to work well. Users didn't like it, and Gates realized he had gone beyond what the market could handle. Another story is how Microsoft almost missed the internet. At first, the internet was a low priority for the company. Then Gates had a revelation and saw the internet as the future. He panicked, but didn't show it. Instead, he sent a memo to all staff, making the internet their top priority. In a few months, Microsoft launched Internet Explorer, which later became the most widely used browser in the world. The story of a rivalry. Bill Gates had a strong love for competition, which played a big role in Microsoft's success. He always had a deep desire to win, whether it was in a chess game or competing against Apple. Steve Jobs shared this competitive spirit. They came from similar backgrounds, both young Americans with promising futures. They both wanted to lead in a rapidly growing tech market, naturally leading to a rivalry. However, they had different focuses. Gates aimed at creating products for businesses, while Jobs targeted individuals who thought differently. Gates prioritized functionality, while Jobs emphasized art and product design. Jobs even took Microsoft to court, accusing them of stealing Apple's graphical user interface for Windows. Despite their competition, Gates and Jobs knew the tech market was vast enough for both to thrive. They understood that competing made their companies better. In the end, it was a battle with no real losers. Surprisingly, despite decades of rivalry, Gates and Jobs were friends. Gates visited Jobs before he passed away. They reminisced about their youth and how their rivalry had strengthened their companies. This shows that competition can lead to purpose and success. Family. Bill Gates may not have been the charming romantic type who went on lots of dates. He spent most of his time coding and working on computers, which isn't the best way to build relationships. But he had other qualities that made him attractive to some people. He was athletic, smart, confident, and competent. One of Gates' famous relationships was with Anne Winblad, which lasted 3 years but didn't lead to marriage. Gates was deeply focused on building his company, and he knew that he needed to find someone truly special to settle down with. That someone turned out to be Melinda. They met at a New York trade fair while she was working at Microsoft. Gates was drawn to her sense of humor and intelligence. But their first date didn't start on the right foot. Gates initially asked her out for 2 weeks later, which didn't impress Melinda. However, he quickly reconsidered, called her, and arranged dinner for that very night. Years later, Gates and Melinda got married in an elegant wedding. Gates always put his family first and wanted his children to have a normal life. He plans to give most of his wealth to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to ensure his children succeed on their own. He believes that family should always come first, even when you're successful in your work. Read like Bill Gates. Bill Gates has a unique approach to learning about business. He doesn't believe you have to study academic business books to become successful. Instead, he thinks it's better to dive into the business world and learn through practical experience. The hard and real way. Only after getting started should you consider reading. But when Gates does read about business, he has a few favorite books. One of them is The 10 Commandments for Business Failure by Donald E.R. Kieff, which offers valuable insights into avoiding business pitfalls. Another book he enjoyed is My Years with General Motors by Alfred Sloan, which guides young entrepreneurs into the world of business. However, Gates' all-time favorite business book is Business Adventures by John Brooks, recommended to him by Warren Buffett. It's a collection of stories about the successes and failures of companies. Gates considers it the best business book he's ever read. Take time to reboot. Bill Gates may seem like a workaholic, but he also values his hobbies and leisure time. He enjoys activities like swimming, tennis, skating, and skiing. However, to make room for all of these interests in his busy schedule, he had to make a sacrifice: sleep. Gates used to be able to work for long hours, even up to 36 hours at a stretch, but as he got older, he realized the importance of relaxation. In 2000, Gates made the decision to step down from his CEO position at Microsoft. In 2008, he transitioned to working part-time instead of full-time. It's important to note that Gates' part-time work schedule is likely more demanding than most people's full-time jobs. In 2014, he also gave up his chairmanship at the company. Despite these changes, Gates didn't retire to a life of idleness. He keeps himself engaged with activities like reading and writing. He remains deeply committed to the Gates Foundation and continues to travel the world to ensure that his charitable work reaches as many people as possible. The key lesson here is that relaxation is just as vital as hard work. If you solely focus on work, you may have to sacrifice other aspects of your life. Gates found a balance that allowed him to achieve success while still enjoying life. Give something back. Bill Gates wasn't initially focused on giving back to society. He believed that to achieve his goals, he needed to be free of any distractions. In 1987, and again in 1992, when asked about charity, he mentioned that he needed to concentrate on Microsoft for another decade before turning to charity work. At that time, he felt that the work he was doing at Microsoft was a form of giving back to society. However, by the mid-1990s, Gates had established the William H. Gates Foundation, named after his father and inspired by his mother, Mary Gates. Her influence had instilled in him a desire to give back and help the less fortunate. Mary had passed away from breast cancer, and her final speech included the message, "From those to whom much is given, much is expected." Gates wanted to ensure that his charitable contributions reached those in need, which led to the creation of the foundation. He believed that with great wealth came great responsibility, the responsibility to give back to society and utilize his resources for the greater good. In the year 2000, he and his wife, Melinda, founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which has become one of the world's wealthiest charitable organizations. The foundation has had a profound impact, particularly in the fight against diseases like polio. Warren Buffett, who admires Gates and his capabilities, also became a trustee of the Gates Foundation and made substantial donations to it. Gates postponed his charitable work not because he didn't want to give back, but because he believed it would be more beneficial for society if he waited until his company was prepared to take that step, ensuring greater success in his philanthropic endeavors. The Gates legacy. Bill Gates isn't preoccupied with how history will remember him. His humility shines through in his indifference to whether people remember him for his philanthropy, his impact on the world, or how he spent his wealth. His primary concern is that, in the pages of history, there will be evidence of reduced poverty and child mortality rates. It doesn't matter who gets the credit for this progress. Gates simply wants to leave the world in a better state than he found it. Regardless of his intentions, Bill Gates will undoubtedly be remembered. He's not your typical wealthy individual who amassed fortunes, made some contributions to society, and then quietly exited the scene. Gates has done much more than that. He has left a profound mark on the lives of people worldwide, influencing us all, If there's one piece of advice to take from his life, it's to emulate his dedication to making the world a better place. Conclusion: Bill Gates's journey began with a deep love for software and technology, cultivated from a young age. He was raised in an environment that encouraged his passion for challenging the status quo. Starting Microsoft with his best friend Paul Allen wasn't easy. They made a bold promise, created the software they envisioned, and successfully presented it in just 6 weeks. Despite the challenges, it was a rewarding journey. Gates's belief in the importance of intellectual property and the distinction between stealing and developing ideas is a valuable lesson. He emphasized the significance of leading by example and demonstrating your value to those around you. Testing ideas, subjecting them to stress, and learning from mistakes are essential elements of success. Embodying the core principles of innovation. In a competitive world, these elements are crucial for survival. Above all, Bill Gates's legacy will endure. He may not seek recognition as a hero, but his primary goal is to make the world a better place. Regardless, he will always be remembered as a true hero.